Thanks for joining us again for Let the Bible Speak. We've been looking at 2 Peter this week in chapter 1, where Peter talks about things that a person can add to their faith. He says, picking up in verse 5, but also for this very reason, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, to virtue knowledge. He says self-control, perseverance, godliness, and godliness, brotherly kindness, he says love. And we've talked about this, I think, in some detail. And so you can be, if you this is your first time listening, go back and look at this text, Second Peter chapter 1, verses 5 through about 8 or so, and we'll sort of bring you up to speed. Today we want to look at verse 10 because he says the person that has these things that he's been talking about, he says not only in verse 9 that it will prevent a person from being blind ever again. And again, I talked about yesterday, I know about vision challenges. I have vision challenges. But he's talking about spiritual blindness, how to prevent that from ever happening. And a person can accomplish this by adding these things. In verse 10 now, he says, therefore, brethren, be even more diligent to make your call and election sure. For if you do these things, you will never stumble. And so not only can a person avoid a vision impairment, spiritual vision impairment, they can also avoid ever stumbling in their faith again. And that is a significant claim, that I can prevent myself from struggling to the point that I fall in my faith. And all I have to do is add these things. Note also that he's not saying that a person can't fall or a person can't stumble. The Bible doesn't teach that. Some of my religious friends, they teach the idea that a person is, once they're saved, they're always saved. And there's nothing they can do so as to fall from grace. And yet the Bible seems to teach something very different. Again, you look towards the bottom of your screen, you'll see I have a few passages down there. One of them is Galatians 5 and verse 4. Galatians 5 and verse 4, Paul says to his listeners, to his Christians, he says, you have fallen from grace. He says that to Christians, people who had obeyed the gospel of Jesus Christ, people who had been trying to live their lives faithful, but he doesn't tell them that once they were saved, they were always saved. In fact, they were trying to go back to the old practice of the law of Moses. And he says, if you were to do this, you have fallen from grace. And so this is not what Peter's talking about. Peter's not saying that the person can't fall. He simply says that if you add these things, you won't. And that should be motivation for all of us. Continue to add these things to our faith. If you'd like to study more about this, again, we'd be more than happy to carve out time, sit down with you, open the Bible, and let's just study together and see what God has to say. If you're interested in that, go ahead and give us a call. That number is 843-553-5157. We'll see you next time.